So welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Again, I am Paul Morrow here on the Ops Desk, and this week we're really excited to have a special guest, somebody that I've bounced into down through the years here in New York. I'm sure if not all of you, then almost all of you know my next guest. It is Curtis Sliwa, famed, of course, of the Guardian Angels, but also the Republican candidate this year, odds-on favorite to be the Republican candidate for mayor in a year when the Republicans have more of a shot than ever. We're really excited to have him. So, Curtis, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you for recognizing that this is an unusual mayoral campaign. So many people have been focused on the bloodbath in the Democratic primary. They don't realize that the top two candidates are going to be in the general election anyway, with Eric Adams, another independent, and me as the Republican candidate. And with those numbers, I start with 30%. So do the math, Paul, and your watchers and listeners, a point or two more, and I'm the next mayor of the city of New York.
Well, Curtis, your mouth to God's ears, because this town cannot take another 4 years of the kind of stuff we've had for the last 12 years. So I got to ask you, let's just go right into it, man. Likely it's going to be Cuomo. Let's start with him. I'm sure you're all loaded up on him. What's your take on what this city will be like if we end up with Andrew Cuomo as the next mayor?
Well, for those that like movies, I equate him to the Prince of Darkness. He now, in fact, I am going to suggest when we have our mandatory 2 debates, which will be in October, that I actually say, taking my place should be the Cuomo of 2018, the author of our destruction in the city and state when he was governor, when he could make a difference, because now it's like he acts like he doesn't know. He was the author of No Cash Bail. He raised the age. He eliminated qualified immunity, which he has benefited from. For those who don't understand what that is, the insurance that every civil servant has, that you, Paul, had as a brave member serving in the NYPD, so that if you got sued, we, the taxpayers, have to cover you. And yet he stripped that from the cops from Buffalo to Brooklyn. And now our state controller, Tom DiNapoli, has told us that the bill for defending him from the sexual harassment charges, because he had qualified immunity as governor, is $63 million and growing. So it's always with Cuomo, do as I say, but not as I do, a double standard. He destroyed the state of New York, and now he wants to come with his wrecking ball to destroy the city of New York. And the only one who stands between him and anyone else from doing that is the Republican candidate, yours truly, Curtis Sliwa.
So I want to expand on that, because one of the other things that he's responsible for, including all the depredations that you just enumerate, all of which are 100% accurate, and all of which those of us who live in the city watch take effect and denigrate our quality of life. But he's also responsible for sanctuary state status. He's the one who put that into play. And, right now, from where I sit, he's kind of running now against himself, the old Andrew Cuomo, but he won't touch the sanctuary stuff. You get in as the mayor. Are you going to, now I know he did it at the state level, you'd be the city level, you'd have to get it through the city council, but are you committed to trying to undo New York City's status as a sanctuary city?
You're right. You perfectly described Andrew Cuomo. He is like the George Costanza from the Seinfeld series, of a guy who does one thing and then a few days later not only denies it, but takes a completely different position. There's a clear way of dealing with the sanctuary city status that doesn't have to be covered by the state status. You can be independent and autonomous.
That's right.
The council will never let the mayor do that. So what we'll do is I'll say, let's leave it to the people. Let's have a plebiscite, which the mayor can do, charter revision. Eric Adams had a chance to do it last year. He refused. Had a chance to do it this year. He refuses. I'm going to put it on the ballot. I'm going to say, let the people decide, and then go out and campaign on it and explain to average, hardworking people, especially first-generation immigrants who came in the right way, who now own a home, paying taxes, and are watching all these illegals pass them by with an easy pass while they have relatives, friends, and others who are patiently waiting in their countries of origin to come in the legal way. That's enough to pass the initiative which would retire our sanctuary city status for all time. And the city council cannot override a plebiscite by the people.
Oh my God, their heads would explode. And there's this myth that's out there that Adams promulgates and the media picks it up that we are closing the migrant shelters and we're going in the right direction. There are major hotels here in Midtown Manhattan, the Roosevelt and others, that are still migrant centers, and you and I both know the gangs are running those places. They're running drugs, they're running guns, they're running women in and out of those places. And until those things close and we get serious about revoking the sanctuary city status, you're 100% right. We're not going to manage the quality of life gains that we really need. Let me stay on quality of life. I want to go to something that you know better than anybody in town, and that's the subways. The Guardian Angels realistically started as guardians of the subways. I remember it, man. I used to take subway back in the 70s, and if you saw a car that had the Guardians on it, you got on that car because you knew you'd be safe. So what would your plan be as Mayor Sliwa for New York City's subways?
Well, it's a state agency that runs it. So Kathy
Right.
Hochul, who knows nothing about subways, the governor. But the New York City government, through the police department, is responsible for the public safety. You must stop fare evasion. If you do
Right.
not stop fare evasion, you're basically giving an opportunity for every social deviant, perv, pedophile, enemy of society to come and go on that subway system and commit crimes. And they don't seem to get it, Paul. Giuliani did it effectively for 8 years. And Ray Kelly did it as the longest serving police commissioner in the city of New York, 12 years with Michael Bloomberg. Now, Michael Bloomberg knew Wall Street. But as you know, Paul, he knew nothing about the streets and subways. Ray Kelly did. We didn't have these problems for 20 years. The moment we ended up with de Blasio, Cuomo, Adams, it became the Irish sweepstakes. They go under the turnstile, over the turnstile. Then you see these rent-a-guards who like brace themselves on the
Yeah.
emergency gate. And some guy comes by and says, get off that gate or else. And the person just steps away. And then everybody comes in for free. And then it's learned behavior. Once you see other people not paying boldly, brazenly, with no consequences whatsoever from the DAs, who Eric Adams will not name and shame. You got to name and shame them.
Yeah.
And you have to point out that, no, everybody's going to pay the fare. That's where it all starts. If you don't do that, you cannot control what ends up in your subway system or even on your city buses, where now half the people don't even bother to pay. Half the people walk past the bus driver, give them the finger and say, I ain't paying, because nobody else is paying.
As I haven't taken the bus or the subway in the last couple of years where I didn't watch maybe a quarter to a third of the people get on without paying. The bus is probably half. You're right. And at a time when we're told from Hochul that we need congestion pricing to make up for the shortfalls in the MTA, all of us are looking around saying, well, why don't you just enforce the fares? Because if you did that, we all know, excuse me, they've put the number at some place between, I've seen 700 million, 800 million. I've seen as much as $1 billion that we lose to fare evasion. It's insanity. And, Curtis, and again, you'll notice better than anybody, the follow-on effects of that, because now what it means is nobody can take the subways at night. We don't have young women taking the subways at night, doing those jobs in the bars, the restaurants, all the stuff that they used to do because they're afraid of the subways. And as a result, nobody can get help. And so you see them boarded up storefronts where we had restaurants, club. Have you noticed that we're no longer the city that doesn't sleep, Curtis?
Now, at times, we resemble downtown Cleveland. 11 o'clock at night, you can roll up the sidewalks. The nightlife ceased to exist because most of the employees, most of the managers, and as you know, Paul, when single guys are going from bar to bar and they're cruising, if there are no women around, they're not going to come around. And they're not
That's right.
spend money. And then women who are working hard, some of them single mothers, raising families, they cannot afford an Uber ride, a taxi ride. So all of a sudden, the entire nightlife economy crashes. We have a mayor here who claimed, I'm the nightlife mayor. I'm the swagger man with no plan. Well, guess what? You didn't make it safe for women. And worse off, Paul, you don't have the problem when you're on the subway of somebody coming up to you like women do morning, noon, and night, who want to prove that they don't have erectile dysfunction in front of you. And then they don't get arrested. They're
Yeah.
flashing themselves. They're rubbing on women. They are a menace to women, and they never get banned from the subway system. I'm mayor. I'm saying we have a list of these pervs, of these predators of women, and they got to be banned from the subway system. We have photo recognition technology that we've spent millions of dollars on. And this mayor and previous mayors refuse to use it. 99.9% of the time, it is accurate in depicting who is a predator, who is a wanted felon, and who is not. So you're not going to make a mistake. And we need to use the photo recognition technology to keep the perverts and the sexual marauders off the trains, who are not only harassing women, hardworking women, and the elderly women, but young girls too. The
course.
pedophiles that are out there, especially with all the sex trafficking that took place, and the pedophiles who fled across the border into the United States when everybody was waving them in during the Biden administration. They're all amongst us, and they're riding the trains. Remember, it was December 22nd. Debrina Kuam, a homeless woman from New Jersey. Remember, she was on that F train. She had become
Sure.
homeless, and that migrant fiend, that pyromaniac, set her on fire, fanned the flames. The cops did nothing. The people who were on the platform did nothing, and she twisted like a melting candle. I mean, these attacks are going on every day, every night. And quite frankly, if you don't control those turnstiles, I don't care how many cops you put in the system, you're not going to control the problems. And we have to be able to protect our children, the elderly, and especially the hardworking women out there.
It's unbelievable to me that none of the women's groups step up on this, and all you have to do is look at what's going on, and you see that women are being victimized. So let me expand on it a little bit, because one of the other problems we have, in addition to everything you elucidate about the subways, are the crazies. There are mentally ill all over the place. You know it, I know it. They're not just in the subway, but many of them are. Every subway train has a car that you just don't go into. This is a tough nut for the mayor. It's going to be expensive. What does Mayor Sliwa do to address the mentally ill on the streets of New York City?
Well, first off, Paul, I'm the only mayoral candidate who is riding the trains every day and has been for 46 years and walking the street. So I deal with the emotionally disturbed all the time. I know many of them by first name basis, and they all have stories. They need to get into a psychiatric hospital. There's no other alternative. And the guy who's running for mayor now, Andy Cuomo, right? He's the one who released them out into the streets and subways. When he became the governor, there were 40,000 beds in state psychiatric facilities. By the time he fled, fearing impeachment to the Hamptons, when he left Albany as governor, there were 4,000 beds. He said, oh, it was cost effective. Are you, where is, he is so cold hearted. There's no compassion. There's no concern. There is no feeling for these. These are our American, emotionally disturbed. Migrants, we gave $7 billion, people we didn't even know. Americans who are down on their luck or emotionally disturbed, we need to help them first and foremost. Some of them are veterans, Paul. I
Right.
know them well. They actively served in the United States military during wartime and peacetime, and they're left to be wallowing in their own feces and urine, no food. And the one thing they need most is water, because they dehydrate, and that's
Right.
when their psychosis takes over. Shame on all of us for allowing this and caring for migrants. We didn't even know, we never vetted. And by the way, we never tested for COVID and everything else under the sun. We just said, come on in. And
Yeah.
boy, what a mistake that was.
All right. So then let me ask you this. And we all know that a lot of them need help, the EDPs, emotionally disturbed persons in the street, but a lot of them are not going to accept help. And if you don't have the lever of criminality, because you can't lock somebody up for life because they're blocking the sidewalk or something, what are we going to do? And this is tough, man. What are you going to do for people that are hearing voices, not capable of caring for themselves, but don't want to be locked up, essentially, stay in a facility? Can we put in a regime? I know we're supposed to have it, but you and I know we both don't. We both know we don't. What are we going to do aside from taking them to Bellevue, giving them some fluids, and then letting them out? How are we going to incarcerate them with 3 hots and a cot, someplace where they feel nurtured, and yet they're not out in the general population slipping down again?
Well, number one, you have to move to commit them. You're going to be challenged in court. We have 1,000 lawyers who are part of the Corporation Council who every day grow barnacles on their backside. And all they do is they stamp, settle, settle, and go out with their adversaries at night for cocktails and dinner. That's going to end. We're going into court. We're fighting. We're going to lose some, Paul, and we're going to win
Yeah.
some. But the people of New York City are going to know that we're going to protect our own homeless, our own emotionally disturbed. We're going to fight to get them the care they deserve as a compassionate mayor. Nobody's tougher than Curtis Sliwa. This is a mayoral campaign for everybody. I'm tough. I'm tough. I'm talking to you on a day where 32 years ago, I got shot with 5 hollow point bullets on the orders of John Gotti Sr. to John Gotti Jr. and the Gambino crime family, and I survived. That's not what toughness is. Toughness must also come with compassion and concern. And we're not dealing with these people in terms of what they need. And I'm the mayor who's going to do that because I live with them in the subways and the streets. And I know so many of them by first name basis. We will win some legal battles. We will lose some legal battles. But the people of New York will know that they got a mayor who's going to fight for those who can't fight for themselves.
Well, I have to tell you, you're the first person who seems willing to say we have to put in a coercive regime for some of them. We're going to have to get commitment. You're going to come up against the DHS, the homeless sort of monolith, because you and I both know it's a whole ecosystem, right? That's a silo of power in this town. You have not only the Department of Homeless Services, DHS, but you have all of those attendant NGOs whose rice bowl, they get money from the government. Their rice bowl is to keep the homeless situation exactly as it is. It does nothing but expand the DHS apparatus. That administration is just it just continues to explode, and yet nothing ever changes. Let me move on to another thorny issue that I know you know about. We have right now the beginnings of the closing of Rikers Island, and we all know that Rikers Island is a mess. Nobody's advocating for the idea that Rikers should stay as it is. But the borough-based jails, going into all the boroughs except Staten Island, it was configured by the de Blasio administration. Originally, they wanted to go down like 60% down in jail beds for this town. Now it looks like they're going down about 30, 40%. But nonetheless, we don't lock anybody up now. We're going to go down 30, 40% from where we are now because that's all the beds that they've allowed for in the borough-based jails. Are you going to go forward with that? You're going to refurbish? What's your answer for this Rikers catastrophe?
The mayor has extraordinary power, which this Mayor Adams has not used. And obviously, de Blasio just forfeited it because he waved white flag to everything. No, Rikers is more than manageable if you have the right people managing Rikers. Look, we just lost Bernard Kerry, who had served under Rudy Giuliani. He's best remembered as the police commissioner during the attack on 9/11. I best remember him before that as the head of a correctional department that had 18,000 inmates. That's
Right.
3 times what we had now.
Right.
I lectured in those jails. I taught in the high school on Rikers. I was in and out of there, and I didn't fear for my life. Now, with 1/3 less the population, the gangs control Rikers. The correctional officers who have the toughest job in the city, it's a perpetual 911 call for them on a 12-hour shift. And you got to say to yourself, no, we're not putting these inmates into neighborhoods at $2 billion. And, that's just the initial figure.
Sure.
That number will grow. We're keeping them on Rikers. We will rehab those facilities. But most importantly, we are not going to reconfigure the decks on the chairs on the Titanic. So because we can't manage Rikers Island now, it's under federal receivership.
Right.
That's a black eye for Eric Adams and his administration. Nobody is going to keep it under federal receivership with me, Paul, because in the first 13 years of the Guardian Angels, you know how many times Ed Koch, who was my nemesis, would have me locked up and they would lose my paperwork and I would end up in a dormitory on Rikers Island. So I know the big solitary confinement, Punk City, protective custody. I know what the inmates have to go through. I know what the correctional officers, but none of the citizens want to know what goes on Rikers Island. Their attitude is just keep them out of sight, out of mind. You can't do that. You have to put it on. I will be on Rikers Island constantly because that's the source of so many of our problems. Once they're released with this no cash bail of Cuomo and with DAs like Bragg who refuse to keep them behind bars, they're going to become an enemy of society twice as strong because they know there are no consequences for their actions.
All right. So I think that's absolutely, I got to tell you, that's something I've been advocating for a long time. We have this island that has the basics. Fix that instead of trying to devolve. They have this pie in the sky idea that we'll only need to lock up 2,000 people and we can put them in our neighborhoods and people can visit them more easily and everything. It's all nonsensical. It's people that, like you say, have never been out to Rikers. I've been there, and I think that these are people who want to make criminal justice decisions who have never really bumped into the system. So we have just a couple of minutes left. I got to ask you because you bring it up. He came in as a former police officer. I didn't know him. I didn't work with him, full disclosure. But Adams said a lot of the right things last time around. I think a lot of people in the middle, center, left, center, right had high hopes for Eric Adams. And I have to say that he's been a disappointment because he does not seem to want to take a position. Seems to want to be all things to all people. What's your take?
Paul, I warned everybody. I was running against him. It was only me and Eric Adams. I said, you will have chaos and you will have corruption. There's no doubt about it. We have been filled with chaos under the leadership of Mayor Eric Adams and the corruption. Look, everybody knows if President Donald Trump didn't make those federal charges go away, he would be a cellmate, a Maytag, a Bobby Menendez right now in some camp fed somewhere. So he made a deal with Trump to help Tom Homan and ICE remove the criminal illegal aliens. I get that. But don't walk around saying you weren't guilty of corruption. He had 9 people either resign or get indicted. I mean, that's never happened in the history, and we've had some really corrupt mayors. But I knew it was all fraudulent. We have a term in the streets, we call it being a fugazi. And people who actually served in the police department with Eric Adams knew he was, as you know, Paul, what they call a house mouse, hiding in the precinct, never making collars. In fact, with the death of Bernard Kerik, our former police commissioner under Rudy Giuliani, he made more collars when he was police commissioner, riding around checking on the precincts. 5, one of a wanted murderer who had violated parole, than Eric Adams did in 22 years as a police officer, where all he did, and his own words, I kicked those crackers' asses every day. His own words. By the way, Paul, that audio was not released until after I lost to Eric Adams because they knew that could potentially deep six his candidacy.
Yeah, he has said some really unfortunate things. And, I think that it's one of the reasons why he's obviously not getting the Democratic nomination. He's not even running for it. And he's pinning his hopes to this independent thing, which right now, according to the polling, there's no shot. I got to ask you 2 last things real quick. Number one, you're out there, you're in the streets, you're talking to people. What is the number one concern that you see of the electorate of New York City right now?
Without a doubt, quality of life issues. The fact that you have to lock up toothpaste and not criminals. I mean, think of the lunacy of that. In New York City, you lock up toothpaste in retail establishments, mom and pop shops, or the big retailers, and you refuse to lock up hardcore criminals. So that's number one. Number two, some other unknown facts that the mayor has admitted. Every day, Paul, in the 5 boroughs, 90,000 packages are stolen that are meant to be delivered.
As per the New York Times, this is not Curtis Sliwa making this up. This is the lefty New York Times. I know that piece.
Right, and admitted to by the mayor. That means if you're waiting for UPS package, FedEx, Amazon, USPS, the likelihood is that the porch pirates are already in their cars and vans following the delivery men and women. The moment they deliver, they snatch the packages, throw it in the back. Over $1,000, it's a felony crime.
That's right.
They start adding that up. These guys and gals should be locked up. No arrests. No arrests. And then in the outer boroughs, these are the 4 boroughs of the blue-collar work people and retirees, mail is stolen. Every time the Social Security checks arrive and the credit cards arrive.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, there are no arrests made. So between that and the shoplifting that isn't being dealt with, the quality of life in New York City is miserable. And everybody knows, out of all the candidates running, the law and order candidate, the guy who knows about all these issues firsthand is Curtis Sliwa, because I've been dealing with it as leader of the Guardian Angels here for 46 years and leading efforts in 13 countries and 130 cities around the world.
So, what's interesting is those 90,000 packages stolen a day are not accounted for in the NYPD crime numbers. I don't understand it. People must not file the complaints, or I don't know what it is, but if those numbers were accounted for, our crime rate would be through the roof. Last question I got to ask you. This is a simple one. Did you pick your police commissioner yet?
No, but clearly I would keep Jessica Tisch for now. She did an amazing job cleaning out the corruption at One Police Plaza. You had the number 2 guy in the police department, never mind Eddie Caban, who was corrupt. You had this guy, Jeffrey Madry, that was running Caligula on the 13th floor. He had to flee. These were all of Eric Adams' cronies. So I would say that was a tremendous heavy lift on her part. She's not good in the streets.
No.
Let's face it. She knows more about Wall Street, like her family, than the streets. But let's see what she does this summer. Already I see the gangbangers are out there shooting each other up in the outer boroughs. She's focused on Manhattan. I understand from her perspective that where she was raised, she grows up, she's more comfortable. Park Avenue. But as you know, Paul, there's a Park Avenue in Brooklyn and a Park Avenue in the Bronx, and
Right.
it ain't like the Park Avenue in Manhattan.
No, it surely isn't. Well, listen, I'll give you the last word. Anything else you want to impart to our audience about your candidacy and what you would do as mayor?
Look, there's 5 candidates in the general election. I start out with 30% of the vote. So once we're past the bloodbath in the Democratic primary, just do the math. And if you want to know what I really stand for beyond just the subjects we discuss, you go to sliwafornyc.com. That's sliwafornyc.com. You got a cop here, Paul Morrow, was busting his shoes for years. He recognized what I meant to the city of New York the first time we met. And we were standing in a subway in Times Square when the Venezuelan gangbangers were running amok, and we watched people jumping over the turnstile like there was no tomorrow. And no
Yeah,
enforcement.
you're right.
With Curtis
No
Sliwa,
enforcement.
there will be enforcement.
And you have a fundraiser coming up, right?
That's right. In fact, the GOP finally got smart. Governor Pataki, he was great. 12 years, no chaos, no corruption, is hosting a fundraiser with the head of the state GOP, Ed Cox. And the other day, Elise Stefanik came out and said, there's only one candidate for mayor. And that's Curtis Sliwa, because, now get this, he knows where all the bones are buried and who buried it. How could anybody not vote for Curtis Sliwa? And that's Elise Stefanik from upstate New York. Yeah, we're coalescing. They know the numbers, and that's why people are now beginning to back me, including independents and moderate Democrats who are upset at all the Democratic candidates. You know, you almost feel like when you read each and every candidate running for the Democratic nomination, you feel soiled, like you got to take a hot shower afterwards if you vote for any of them.
It's quite a slate. I mean, between Lander and Mamdani, Cuomo, and all the other characters, Adrian Adams, it really is quite, I'm sorry to say it, but it's a clown car. And they're all doubling down on the stuff that got us here.
I got to mention one thing about Mamdani. The other day he was crying, you know, there are threats against him and he has armed security now. Hey, what about all those social workers you advocate that should replace police out there? Instead of do as I say, but I ain't going to do as I say, not for me, but for you. How about being guarded by social workers, Mamdani? See if they're willing to put their life on the line like a trained professional police officer to save you, who hates cops and would eliminate police and would eliminate Rikers Island.
That's a great point. You know, where are the violence interrupters when you need them? And obviously, they're no place around. Curtis, listen, man, we wish you nothing but the best of luck. We appreciate it. We hope you come back and see us as the campaign goes forward. But we really look forward to seeing you on the debate stage and everything else that's upcoming. Best of luck, and thank you again. Folks, that's going to do it for us on the podcast this week. I am Paul Morrow. Again, special thanks to Curtis Sliwa, candidate for New York City's mayor. We wish him Godspeed. And in the meantime, all of you, please stay safe.